Once again, welcome everyone for the fourth day session on electric vehicle mobility. But today's discussion, it is going to be on two topics. The first session will be focusing on thermal management, and the second session will be discussing about regenerative braking, right, and its challenges. If you remember the last few sessions, if we want to recollect everything, right? So we have discussed about motor, the role of inverter, the inverter and related components of DC-DC converter, DC link capacitors, and even we discussed about battery pack design as well as battery management system, right? So whatever we have seen, those are all very, very important components, key components of electric vehicles that we have already seen. And now today's discussion, which is on thermal management, which is a very important topic, a very challenging topic at this point of time of the electric vehicle development, because this is a topic which affects or which influences each and every component that we have discussed in the previous sessions. So either it can be a battery pack, or either it can be a motor, or it can be an inverter which is driving the motor, or it can be the semiconductors which are used inside all these components. So each and every component is being influenced by a thermal management system, and that thermal management system can be dedicatedly designed for each component. Say for example, a separate thermal management for a motor, separate thermal management for the inverter, separate one for battery. So there are different strategies taken by different manufacturers. So depending upon their cost targets, their developmental time availability, so many factors are there to determine whether they want to go for dedicated thermal management or integrated thermal management. So today we'll be talking about the various methods applied by companies, as well as we'll be taking a case study from Honda, how they have worked on the thermal management of their electric vehicle model, and the challenges they have faced, right? So I hope there will be many things to take from this particular session, and definitely there's a huge scope for development, improvement in this particular area. So, and one of the interesting thing is this particular area, the thermal management, it is actually common for, it's a common area of research for mechanical thermal engineering, mechanical engineering, as well as electrical electronics engineering. So it has scope for all these different branches. So I would definitely encourage the faculty members to consider this as well, one of the thrust area for research in the electric mobility. So if you remember, the electric vehicle component layout, we have very clearly seen that these are all the components that were key components, and all these components which I have indicated here were coming under a single roof. So do you people remember that roof? What is the name of that roof under which all these components are coming up? All these components are coming up under a common roof named what? Any answer? Do you people remember that? So if we have all these components, what is the common thing that that was there in all these components? So all these components, the electric motor or the battery pack, power electronics, distributor, compressor, PTC heater, DC-DC converter, quick charge unit and the onboard charger, all these components come under the high voltage components list, isn't it? So all these components are listed below the high voltage components category. So if since being they are carrying high voltage within them, they do definitely consume lot of power, and they lot of temperature variations are yeah, there are chances of lot of temperature variation. So it is very important for the thermal management system to maintain the temperature difference of the system within a particular range, especially in the areas of the battery pack, inverter, etc. Right? Since because they are very much sensitive for temperature variations, so we need to make sure that the temperature of these components at any point of time, at any point of operating condition, whether it is a very quick acceleration or the vehicle running at a very high top speed, whatever, or the vehicle is climbing a uphill, whatever be the driving condition, because the components get heated up, they go to high temperature because of extreme, when they are running at extreme performance conditions. Similarly, when the vehicle is present in a very cold climate, where a very cold climate, then obviously that some of the components like the electrolytes present in the battery pack or the coolant present in the different other components, so there are chances that this coolant or the electrolyte getting frozen. So we need to make sure that the temperature is not below certain extent, so that the performance of these components are within an acceptable range. So what is a need? What is the requirement from a good thermal management? So a good thermal management should prevent the degradation of performance of a component. It should prevent the degradation of the life cycle or lifetime of a component, right? That is a very important function they have to do. And it should also have a good system complexity. It should not have too much of complexity either in the design stage or in the implementation stage or even in the service maintenance stage, right? So the complexity should be reduced, should be a lesser one, and the thermal management system should be able to be easily implementable into our system, as well as it should also have some characteristics like scalability, right? If in future, if we are going for bigger vehicle, right? So flexibility to add future PE components. So in future, if today now we are making a small car, yes, this is the requirement. And now in future, if we are going to make a bigger car, SUV, or then even more bigger cars, then we need to or a bigger vehicle. You can imagine a truck or a bus, right? So we need to say that the same thermal management system which is present in this car should be able to be scaled up. We should be able to scale up the same thing to a truck or bus. So if we can add more power electronic components in the future, the flexibility should be there from the thermal management system which we are designing. So that is also another important factor. And high energy efficiency. So end of the day, the thermal management should not consume too much of power. It should not drain too much of the battery pack itself to cool down the battery pack. That is definitely not acceptable. So the energy efficiency of the thermal management system is a very notable factor, and its ability to work under extreme conditions, it is another important factor, right? So either it is a very hot climate like India, or it is like cold climate like the European countries or Canada. So the extreme cold conditions, -30, -40, right? So we should be the thermal management system should be able to function in all these kind of extreme conditions. Even sometimes the extreme conditions may be the maximum power delivery from all these components at a hot climate. Can you imagine this condition? There is already a hot climate, hot environment in present there, and at that time the vehicle is also being stressed too much. The vehicle is running at a very low SOC, but still the performance is like they are expecting too much from the vehicle. In that case, the battery will be like in a very hot climate, hot condition. So we should not say no, this battery pack or cannot function. The thermal management cannot function more than this temperature. No. So the thermal management system should be designed in such a way that it can work under these kind of extreme conditions. So that is another important factor. So to give you people a very good, a detailed information, this is how the picture. If you remember the picture I've shown you day before yesterday. Once again, the picture we will look at it in detail. So if you look at this, the charger module is there, DC-DC converter is there, AC-DC inverter, motor, gearbox, and then the battery pack, right? So all these are the components being connected inside a thermal management loop. And each and every manufacturer, either Tesla or Nissan or Volkswagen or Chevrolet, BMW, all these companies, they take a different approach, and this approach is, this approach is very different from each and every manufacturer, and obviously their results are also different. For example, if you look at companies like Volkswagen, Nissan, these companies use passive battery cooling. Initially they used, actually it is not, it is used because it is 2017 and 2015 and 2011, but at present actually they have also moved to active cooling system because of the issues. But initially they were using passive battery cooling only. And for the other components other than the battery, for the charger, DC-DC converter, inverter, motor, they were using active water and glycol based cooling system or thermal management system. And if you look at the model like Tesla model, yes, they used the combined, combined integrated cooling system, where the charger module, DC-DC converter, inverter, motor, gearbox, all these things had a common cooling loop, as a cooling circuit was there, including the battery. So the battery had both liquid heating and liquid cooling, both were present there in the battery pack. So it is like a integrated cooling loop taken by Tesla Model S, and some companies, they have not taken integrated loop. Instead, for example, Chevrolet Spark, for example, in 2014, they had a separate cooling loop for motor and gearbox, and a separate cooling loop for inverter, converter, and charge module separately. And then the battery pack had a separate cooling loop. And then the next generation, the Chevrolet Spark, was further upgraded, and then they created a vehicle called Chevrolet Bolt, which had combined the motor gearbox cooling system with the inverter and other power electronic system, but still the battery pack had the separate dedicated cooling loop or temperature management loop, basically, because it is not only doing cooling function, it is also doing heating function as well, both. So we should not say cooling system only, we should call it as thermal management system. So end of the day, all these companies have taken a different approach, and that is dependent on many factors. So one of the factor is the challenges in integrating, because the motor design, gearbox design, inverter design is not same for all these components. There are some changes they have done, they have seen in their component. So they cannot adopt the same thermal management design for all the companies. It is quite difficult. So depending upon their own requirement, their own challenges, they will be able to take either a dedicated cooling system for each and every component, or obviously an integrated cooling system, integrated thermal management system is also possible, right? So the approach is different, and the challenges are going to be different in each approach. We'll discuss about that. So when we look at a thermal management system, a thermal management system of an electric vehicle, so these are all the components which are going to be part of it, right? So one is the electric motor and the allied transmission system, right? And in addition to that, we are going to have the inverter module and onboard charger module, and the DC-DC converter, we call it as accessory power module, because this is mainly the DC-DC converter, as one of the main function is to provide the accessory power to the 12-volt battery, right? So it takes the power from the high voltage battery and converts that into a low voltage of 12 volt, 14 volt, and gives that to the low voltage battery, and from where the power goes to the low voltage accessories like headlamp, tail lamp, infotainment system, and so many other low voltage components, including contactors, right? So all those are operated by the low voltage battery only. And in addition to these components, we also have the high voltage compressor and a PTC heater, positive thermal coefficient heater, which are also part of this thermal management system. And in addition to this, to monitor the temperature of the cooling system, right? At various points of the loop, we also have a temperature sensor, which is actually operating at different points of the loop to monitor the temperature of the coolant system. And in addition, we also have number of valves, thermal management valves, which are placed at different points of the cooling system. And so these valves, are very helpful in order to distribute or deviate the cooling loop, either to stop the cooling loop at one connection and deviate that, distribute that to another point, another area. So it is a very important, playing a very important role, and these valves are also operated by the battery monitoring unit only. So end of the day, all these are the components, including the battery pack, right? So all these are the components coming inside a thermal management loop of an electric vehicle. So is it clear for everyone? So accessory power module, the inverter, and the electric motor, onboard charger module, high voltage compressor. And what is this high voltage compressor doing? Any participant? Any idea? What is this high voltage compressor doing in an electric vehicle? High voltage compressor. It is actually a component need to be cooled.
For air conditioning?
Very good, very good. Yes, it is for air conditioning. And what is the difference between the air conditioning in a petrol diesel vehicle and air conditioning in a air electric vehicle? What is the difference that do you people think? Or both are same?
There's a rotary machine, the power is drawn from the rotary. What do you call?
Yes. So
rotary part of the engine, right?
yes. So in IC engine vehicle, sir, you can mute your mic. In IC engine vehicle, we have the internal combustion engine actually running this compressor, correct? So using, as he told, using a rotary connection, using a belt drive, whenever the IC engine is started, automatically the compressor will start running when we switch on the AC, and it will turn the, it will cool down the system. It is common for, it is used as a cabin heater as well, right? But in electric vehicle, we don't have an engine, right? In a pure battery electric vehicle, we don't have an engine. So since there is no engine, we cannot take the drive for the high voltage compressor, because of which the high voltage, it is actually a high voltage compressor which can independently function. It has an independent motor inside this compressor which can independently powered by the battery pack from the main battery pack, and it is going to operate in a high voltage environment. That is why in electric vehicle, we don't have the belt drive connection from the motor. So in electric vehicle, the compressor is itself is a dedicated compressor. It can run independently. It's a high voltage compressor powered by the battery. So it is also a component actually which needs cooling, right? The high voltage compressor which is present there, which is also a component which exceeds lot of temperature, and it is basically a motor driven system, right? So which is also part of this thermal management loop. And we also have a PTC heater. So this heater, and do you people remember the temperature below which the heater will turn on? I think I have told this in some of the previous session. Do you people remember the temperature below which the PTC will turn on? PTC heater will turn on. Temperature. Mostly it is standardized in most of the manufacturers' conditions because of the standards available in the market. So do you remember the temperature? Do you remember I told 10 degrees Celsius? So this is the operating border, the threshold. So below 10 degrees Celsius, immediately the PTC heater will be turned on in order to heat the cooling loop, in order to increase the temperature from there, right? So it is a very important area or zone. You can see that, the PTC heater plays a very important role there. So So as we mentioned, high voltage compressor is completely different from the conventional compressor that we use in a electric vehicle. That we use in compared to our IC engine vehicle, petrol diesel vehicle, the compressor that we use in a petrol vehicle, electric vehicle, it is different. It functions with purely electric current, electric power, and it is supported by the high voltage battery pack only. That is why it is also categorized as orange, orange color high voltage system, right? It is clearly mentioned, visible there. Wherever you see a orange color connector or orange color cable, immediately you should consider that as high voltage component without any doubt. Wherever you see orange, so you can see orange color label or orange color connector, right? Everything indicates that it is a high voltage electric vehicle component. That is very important. And what is one more difference? The accessory power module. The accessory power module, which is basically a DC-DC converter, right? So in IC engine vehicle, what we have instead of this, instead of a DC-DC converter in an electric vehicle, in IC engine, what we have to charge the 12-volt battery? Any answers from the participants? Any answers? What we have
an
in
inverter?
Which one, sir?
DC-DC, an inverter is used, right?
No, in a petrol diesel vehicle, sir. In a petrol diesel vehicle, what is the component that charges the 12-volt battery?
It's an alternator.
Very good, sir. Very good. Very good. So it is the alternator, right? So in petrol diesel vehicles, we have an alternator, whereas in the electric vehicles, we don't have such alternator. Instead, it is actually the DC-DC converter, which is actually powering the low voltage battery and low voltage components, right? So that even in that case also, it is actually different. So we see that the components perform in a different way, compared to in that case. So that is one more difference that we have from a conventional petrol diesel vehicle. Right. So these are all the different components present in electric vehicle. So we see that that is a key consideration. So let us take a case study. Right. The case study is from Honda Motors. So this is a new electric vehicle, pure electric vehicle that is going to be launched by Honda. The vehicle name is Honda E. It's a prototype vehicle developed and very soon this vehicle is going to be in the market actually. So we are going to just discuss about the thermal management design and the considerations taken by Honda when developing this particular vehicle, right? So when you look at this particular pure electric vehicle, this is the powertrain layout of this Honda E, and we can very clearly see the battery pack, which is carrying the major part of the vehicle. You can see the battery pack, DC-DC converter, onboard charger, and the motor location and the inverter drive location. Everything is present here, and the compressor and the heater, everything is present here, right? So all these components are actually present here along the in a high voltage path, and you can see all these components are connected in a high voltage connection as well, right? So that is the loop basically. So if this is the schematic diagram of the thermal management system of the Honda E vehicle, and we can see that schematic diagram is actually splitted into different circuits basically. So one is the dedicated battery cooling circuit, one is the powertrain control unit cooling circuit, and another one is motor cooling circuit, and another one is the air conditioning circuit. So there are different circuits being there, and depending upon the component, each and every component have their own requirements, right? All these components, they don't operate at same temperature, same power consumption, right? So each and every component has their own power requirement, has their own temperature challenges. So obviously they have to be splitted. And at the same time, all these components, one more consideration is all these components do not operate at all point of time. That is also very important, because say if you look at battery, it operates both it operates in driving condition and normal charging condition as well as fast charging condition. All these three different conditions batteries operate. For example, onboard charger, they don't have any work during driving condition, right? And they don't have any work for a fast charging condition. They only operate in a normal slow charging condition, right? And if you look at the inverter, they don't have any work during the charging operation. They only operate during the driving condition. So we are depending upon the operation, right? The different operations at a different point of time, the cooling loop has to be designed and developed accordingly, right? We should not keep on circulating the coolant unnecessarily to all the components, right? It is going to definitely reduce the efficiency of the cooling loop. So whichever the component is going to operate at whatever the point of time, right? According to that point of time, point of condition only, we need to circulate the cooling loop. So that is another important factor. So we can see here the battery pack. So the battery pack system and electric water heater, electric water valve, and electric water pump is there, and coolant temperature sensor, right, placed here, one of the sensor placed here, and the battery radiator. That's a separate radiator dedicatedly for the battery cooling. So the battery radiator is there, and that loop is different. That is the battery cooling circuit, right? And another loop is the PCU, the powertrain control unit circuit, where we have the PCU, the inverter radiator for the inverter, and a separate coolant temperature sensor for that loop, and a separate water pump, and there's an inverter sitting there, right? So this is one more thing. And additionally, there is one more loop for motor cooling circuit, oil cooler. So basically in this particular Honda E vehicle, they have used oil cooling for the motor temperature management. So oil cooling and oil pump and motor, that's a separate dedicated cooling loop for the motor. And another air conditioning unit is basically to improve the properties of the coolant. We have a compressor, expansion valve, and evaporator combination, and a condenser. So that is a general air conditioning circuit, whatever present in a system. So from there they use that condenser to radiate the heat from the component. So end of the day, we have these kind of different loops, and we can see that the onboard charger, DC-DC converter, and battery, all these three components, right? All these three components are actually present in a same loop or combined seriously. You can say that they are in series. Basically, they are present in series, and they have a separate water heater valve as well. So depending upon the temperature availability in the system, if the temperature is not too much high, it is the optimal temperature, then the valve, the electric water valve, will be operated, and the coolant will be circulated once again in the loop itself. Otherwise, if there is a need for coolant operation, say for example, in some cases the onboard charger or DC-DC converter only might need the cooling loop, right, operation. So in that case, this particular valve will deviate the cooling liquid from here to here, so that the battery will not go below certain temperature, right? So there are different valves located at different point of time. So basically the work, today the main problem is effectively controlling the valves, effectively managing the temperature, and to understand the the temperature difference of a system, right? So as a faculty member, as a research scholar, where we can focus, a very good starting point to start research in this particular area is basically to understand the temperature, the temperature variations in each component. So I would suggest the faculties, who will be interested to work in thermal management, either you can be a mechanical or electrical electronic domain. I would suggest the faculties to first initially do real-time component level testing to check what is their power consumption, right? Say for example, if you are going to plan a thermal management loop for EV vehicle, then take each and every component. Either you can take the actual component from the manufacturer specification, or you can build the models, model of a compressor, model of a motor, model of a inverter. Each and every model you can build using the inputs from a manufacturer in a MATLAB Simulink kind of environment, or you can use some other softwares which are applicable for this. I will give you the details of the softwares at the end of the session. So using those softwares, you can model the components and apply the parameter using the parameters available in the market specification, and analyze what is the operating temperature of this, what is the maximum power consumption of these components, what is the power loss in each and every component, and look at the possibilities where more feasibility of power management is there or power usage is there. We have to find that, because whatever the research activity happening I am showing here, these are all dedicated for Japanese environment or Chinese environment or European environment or American environment. Definitely for Indian environment, Indian conditions, the things will definitely change. There will be a lot of change in different each and every component operating characteristics. So dedicated research is definitely needed. There is nothing like already this research has been done in Europe, so there is no scope for doing it in India. Not like that. So anything that has to be run in India has its own challenges, right? So everyone know that, I believe. So we can dedicatedly do a separate research, understanding the power consumption of each and every component, power losses there in each and every component at any point of operating condition, right? So this is the overall schematic diagram of the thermal management system. So battery cooling circuit, power control unit, that means the inverter cooling circuit, and the motor cooling circuit, and the overall air conditioning circuit. So that's the loop. And let us look at the different operating modes and the strategy implemented by Honda for this new vehicle. So if we look at the different operating modes, they have implemented 3 strategies. One is non-bypass strategy, and other one is the battery bypass strategy, and third one is the radiator bypass strategy, right? So for example, in this case, the non-bypass strategy, all these components, a battery, charger, DC-DC converter are completely circulated with the coolant. So this is basically a place, both the cases, either whenever the battery is in a very hot climate, it is this kind of this strategy will work. This mode will operate to cool down the battery, or in some cases, to warm up the battery, without the electric water heater, without turning on the electric water heater. How to warm up the battery? How can we do that? How can we warm up the battery pack without using the electric water heater? Simple question, right? Any inputs from the participants?
By connecting some loads?
Yes. So connecting
by
the
connecting
load
some loads?
Yes, sir. Yes. So we are going to take the heat from the DC-DC converter and the onboard charging system, basically. So whenever they are having a certain amount of temperature heat, depending upon the temperature measured there, we can use that temperature to warm up the battery pack. So instead of turning on the electric water heater, which will consume some power, instead of that, we can use the heat available from the DC-DC converter and the charger to warm up the battery pack during a charging environment, charging condition. After a long charging scenario, right? That is possible. And second, other mode is battery bypass. Right. So in this case, what they will do, they will not circulate the coolant into the battery system. Instead, they will be bypassing it, and directly only the DC-DC converter and the onboard charger system will be heated or cooled down. So basically, why it is done so? It is done so because the temperature of the battery is in an optimum range, and they don't want to increase or decrease it. So they want to maintain the battery temperature at that particular battery temperature. So they are bypassing the coolant away from the battery, right? So it is basically to avoid the battery overcooling or overheating. In both the cases we can consider, right? And the third important scenario is radiator bypass. In this case, this is basically where the temperature of the environment is very low. So we definitely need the electric water heater to operate, to increase that temperature of the cooling circuit. So heating circuit or cooling circuit. So we use the electric water heater and turn on it and to warm up the battery pack. And in this condition, we will be ready. There will be a bypass happening before the radiator, because we don't need to get the power loss there. So end of the day, it just circulates inside the component itself using the electric water pump. So it is clear, very clear mention here. So warm up the battery. So with the help of the electric water heater. So how the different operating modes and how the different operating strategies are selected, right? So basically the overall in this particular Honda E concept, they have splitted the operating modes into different zones: zone A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? So zone A, for example, let us look at the zone A. Zone A is the area where the battery temperature is between 25, it's like 20 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius, or I can say 25 to 35. 25 to 35. This is a region, this is the best operating temperature. I would definitely recommend all the participants to note down this temperature zone, because I have seen, as per my knowledge, almost all the companies have the similar temperature threshold values, right? So it will be much better for you, if in case in future, if you want to know, the temperature limitations for a battery pack, this would be definitely helpful for you. So the optimal temperature, the zone A, this is the area where the battery bypass function will be there. Battery bypass function will be there. In this case, there will be no battery heating or battery cooling necessary, because this is the optimal temperature for a battery pack, 25 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. Right, that is the zone A. Since the battery temperature is within the optimal range, the batteries are bypassed and the cooling other components is prioritized. And zone B, where is the zone B? It is the zone where the battery temperature is more than 35 degrees Celsius till 70 degrees Celsius, but the coolant temperature is already in a hot area. For example, more than 35 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius. So this is the zone B. So in this case, the batteries are bypassed, because to prevent the influence of high temperature coolant flow, because in this case, the battery is already in a high temperature and the coolant is also in a high temperature. So if the coolant circulates, it will further worsen the temperature of the battery pack. So in this case also, the battery bypass will be happening to bring down to avoid the influence of the battery temperature, the coolant temperature on the battery pack temperature. So this is a battery bypass again, but in the zone B, right? And zone C, where it is coming up, the batteries are bypassed to prevent influence of lower temperatures. Similar way, but in the opposite side. In this case, the battery is in the lower temperature end, below 25 degrees Celsius. But here also the battery is bypassed because the coolant temperature is very worst, because the coolant temperature is below 10 degrees, 0 degree and minus 10 degree zone. It's a very cold zone. So if we circulate the coolant inside the battery, it will further cool down the battery pack. That is also something which we don't appreciate, encourage, right? So zone A, zone B, zone C is seen, and zone D, where is the zone D coming up? Zone D, the batteries are actually cooled with coolant flowing through the radiator. This is a zone where the battery will be cooled, and it is basically the non-bypass line. The batteries will be circulated with the coolant. And similarly, zone E, it is also, the batteries are warmed up. It is a cold region, cooler region. So the battery will be warmed up when the temperature is higher than the batteries. So this is of zone E. And finally, zone F. So zone F, it is the batteries are warmed up using the electric water heater. That is where the zone F comes up. And in this case, in case that electric water heater can't receive the enough power supply to operate, then battery overcooled prevention or the warm-up is implemented by transition to either zone C or zone E. When this condition will happen, this will happen during when the SOC of the battery is in a very lower state, right? So when the battery SOC is very low, that it cannot power electric water heater, in this case where the battery pack system, the strategy is in such a way that it will either go to zone EC or zone E depending upon the temperature, right? So is it clear for all the participants? This is the different strategy implemented in a electric vehicle thermal management system, right? And when you look at a battery pack, on the whole, this is how it is implemented, right? In a battery pack, you can see that this is the battery pack module, upper casing, a lower casing, the battery casing itself. And you can see that The battery modules are placed, cabling, wiring harness, everything is there. And basically this is the cooling plate. The cooling plate is mounted basically at the bottom side. You can see the below the module. So basically the modules will be placed on top of this cooling plate, but not directly. Instead, between this cooling plate and the module, there will be a kind of a thermal management paste. A thermal management paste will be there, and that thermal management paste or adhesive will improve the thermal heat transfer from the temperature transfer from the module to the cooling loop, right? So that is why we have the cooling plate. You can see the cooling plate having input, and it circulates for each and every module. It is like for every module it circulates inside, comes out, goes inside, comes out. So likewise the circulation happens, and finally it exits inside, outside the system, right? So this is the module. Basically this is how the cells are arranged inside a module. So let me zoom it so that people can have a better understanding. This is the individual prismatic cell. Likewise, say for example, in this module, there are like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 cells are there inside this single module, right? And you can look at it here. There is a single module level controller. So yesterday we discussed about the controller, which is present here. You can see. So these are all the cells completely, and you can see the cooling loop. The cooling loop, it is actually connected like this. It goes inside, it comes out, right? So sometimes the cooling loop will be placed throughout this module line. It goes inside, comes out, goes inside, comes out. So the circulation happens in such a way. So for each and every module connection, so there are 12 module connections, and each module has 12 cells. So you can consider 12 into 12, 144. Totally 144 cells have been used in this particular battery pack system. And you can see, look at this particular zone, they have a orifice. See the green color component here. These are all nothing but the orifice. This is the orifice which is placed there. Orifice basically it completely optimizes the flow rate of the coolant, right? So whenever whichever the module, it is not like the same pressure is applied for all the modules. Not like that. So the coolant circulates to each and every module, and depending upon the temperature variations and in each module, the orifice which is placed there will be operated, which will be functioning, right? And accordingly, the orifice will make sure that it will be like the different pressure. You can look at the pressure it can exert. Depending upon the there is an optimization. Basically, Honda has done a good optimization in this particular area. They have optimized the orifice design to further improve the overall coolant flow rate distribution, right? So basically based on this optimization compared to their previous generation vehicle, right, the new generation vehicle, there is an optimum flow rate on the cooling plate. So, right, earlier it was like that the changes in the cooling flow rate were different, and the new optimized orifice has improved. So basically the mechanical design, mechanical engineering domain faculties, they can work on all these areas, material selection for each and every thermal management system, or designing thermal management controller. So electrical electronic people, you can work on developing a dedicated thermal management controller which can effectively manage the temperature of a thermal management system. Even you can focus on a dedicated component. Instead of working at all the components, you can select any certain selected component, like a battery pack or a motor, DC converter, any component, and just implement your project in one component. And that's a great activity. That would be a great support. And basically I would suggest you to give the outcomes of these projects, whatever you're doing. If it is related to two-wheeler, just reach a two-wheeler industry and provide that, right? Don't most of the time the research stays as a research paper, right? So I would suggest whatever be the research outcome you're getting, I would strongly recommend you to take that outcome to a manufacturer, either a motor manufacturer means motor manufacturer, battery means battery manufacturer. In future, definitely it might be useful for them as well, right? And in addition, let me show a video related to this thing, and once again I will come back so that exactly the same area will be understood there. And So let us look at this case, the Tesla Model 3 case, how they have actually modeled their cooling loop. So you can look at the coolant, the coolant circulation system for this Tesla Model 3. We have the radiator. We have talked about all these components now, right? The compressor, condenser, radiator, evaporator, and then the battery pack, which needs the main cooling loop, and then the onboard charger system, and then the power inverter and the motor drive system, right? So and the gearbox. That's what we call it as. And we have a coolant. That means transmission, motor, oil, and coolant exchanger basically. So we have a complete loop present in this particular system. And here air heating resistance. So we can see this is basically a cabin heater. We have actually two requirements in electric vehicle. One is heating the cooling loop, heating the coolant which is running inside, and heating the cabin of the driver in the passenger cabin. So both these functions are done using a same heating element, right? That is also their part of the system. So now knowing the components, once again look at the circulation, where it starts. Radiator, and then it goes to the charger module. That means the motor control module, drive module, and then the charger. And then it comes to the heater ECU, means the heater power control unit component, and then the whole battery pack, and then out it is coming out of the battery pack, and finally heating resistance whenever heat is needed. So this is one example loop which is provided there. But in some of the companies, they have other options. For example, let me take this example. So different connections, orifices are there. So a thermal management system also includes these kind of components, which connects the loop. And these components, it has to be very important function is it should be completely leak tight. They should not leak any sort of coolant. And, it has more requirements after an accident, during an accident of an electric vehicle. Unfortunately, there is an accident, then the coolant or the fluid should not immediately leak, these kind of components should have enough strength, enough power, enough ability to withstand such kind of forces. So all these, what we are seeing is all interconnections in a thermal management, but all these components are made up of polymer because to be a lightweight system. So thermal management it is not only the components and the temperature, all these things, but it is also how we connect the complete loop. That is also very challenging today because it has many standard requirements. During any sort of vibration, the coolant loop should be strong enough. It should be able to withstand such kind of environment, right? So that is very important. And this is one more example cooling loop from Audi e-tron. Let us see how they have actually. So this is the loop they have done in this particular Audi e-tron model, right? So we can clearly see the components remain same. The most of the components of this particular thing, it remains same for all these things. So we can see very clearly that we were able to see that all the components present in the radiator or the power electronic components, everything has become standardized now in the EV market, right? So whatever the thermal, one more opportunity, basically to look at is integration, right? Instead of using separate components on the cooling loop, maybe you can, as a faculty research scholar, I would also suggest people to work to improve the end of the day, to improve the overall integration. So because if you remember, when we discussed about the motor, when we discussed about the battery pack and all these things, we were talking very clearly about the power density, right? So similarly, even in the cooling loop also today, there is a very big challenge for the companies that the cooling loop is occupying too much of space, right? So today now they want to, they have to actually reduce the number of component usage, reduce the complexity present in the cooling thermal management system. So today all the companies are taking different measures basically to reduce the number of components present in the overall thermal management, right? That is one approach, that is one challenge present there, right? So when we look at the overall, if you remember, the similar kind of approach was implemented there, right? So in one of the model, it was like module level, and in some of the model, it is like common. It was not like module level cooling, but it was like a common cooling loop, which is which where the coolant travels from this end to that end, right? It was not dedicated for every module like that, right? That is one more key difference we have to understand. So is there any questions from the participants till now? Is there any questions, specific questions from the participants till this point? Any questions? Okay, I believe my explanation was clear for all the people. And maybe this particular zone, I have not clearly explained. You can see this particular zone. This is the module. This is the battery module, and you can see the cooling plate is sitting below, and you can see what is this, the yellow color one. That is the thermal pad, right? That is the thermal pad. Let me show that dedicated video for that, so that people will wait a moment. So different approaches, basically these are all different components coming up in the thermal management side. So let me just take the loop operation basically. See here, different operations, different the transition between summer, winter, and the different climate conditions. So we can look at the, the overall modes, in this case, overall modes happening, functioning in this system. So today, one of the main manufacturer into this complete thermal management system is MAHLE, and all these companies, they are very specialized in thermal management system, especially either it is petrol, diesel vehicle or electric vehicle. Their specialization itself is thermal management. So all these companies are already working in such kind of projects only, right? So one of the major challenge, that we see is that the battery warm up system, because when the temperatures in the system are very low, that because battery will be able to perform better in an optimal temperature range, as I mentioned, especially in cold countries, countries like Canada, where some of the places where the temperature goes minus 20, minus 30. The temperature of the battery pack, as the battery goes in a very lower temperature zone, it will immediately increase the internal resistance of the battery system, right? So once the internal resistance of the battery increases, then either for charging or discharging, both the cases, it will be very difficult for the battery to perform normally. So one is, if the battery temperature is very low, when we charge, most of the charge power will be wasted, because the internal resistance will be very high, that it will not able to consume that power from the charger. Similarly, during the discharge also, when the temperature of the battery is very cold, similarly the battery will not be able to deliver the expected power as required. So those are all the things. So enhancement of the battery output power and capacity by increase of battery temperature, enhancement of battery charging acceptability to maintain battery temperature above specified temperature during the parking condition, and enhancement of the battery output power for driving condition. All these are different tasks performed by the battery warm-up system, basically. Right, so there are different tasks. You can see the system standby condition, system wake up condition, and the driving condition. So according to the different conditions of the time, of the battery temperature, we can see the battery temperature variation as well. So system standby condition, that is a different case, and the warm up condition, the battery temperature will be stably raised, and then pre-air conditioning stage, it will be like further improved, further in order to meet the optimal level where the driving of an electric vehicle can be done, right? Because as I mentioned, the battery optimal temperature is 25 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. So always they try to bring the battery pack to that particular temperature as quicker as possible, right? Before the battery vehicle starts operating, they try to bring that temperature. So the overall flow velocity, where are the thrust areas, basically the overall, if in this case, what they've done is they have done airflow duct. Actually, you can see this radiator, the radiator fan, the condenser, the battery radiator, the PCU, the inverter radiator. All these components are placed in the front of this vehicle, and they have designed the duct, the airflow duct in such a way that first the airflow touches the inverter radiator, because that is the component which is going to be like during the operation of the vehicle, the inverter is going to get heated up more because of the temperature of the power modules, DC-DC converter, the inductor modules inside the inverter component. So the first airflow is hitting the PCU radiator, and next it is going towards the battery radiator. So you can look at the air duct design, right? So basically what you can, the mechanical faculties, you can work on developing a duct design like this for a particular vehicle. You can take any such vehicle in the market, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or any other vehicle in the market, and look at how to modify the existing body design to cool down this, to bring down the temperature of the component, right? That's how we can actually do that. So here the airflow velocity, they have studied the airflow velocity on the radiator at different vehicle speed, and they have seen what is the for different vehicle speed, what is the average airflow velocity. So this is where the one of the area, they are doing measurements actually. And overall the experimental results show that they are able to improve the range, up to 26% with warm up mode of the operation of the battery pack. So this is a very high, this is not something which is very small consideration. No, it is notable. It's a very notable extension possibilities. So what I mean from here is that if we have a proper warm-up mode, for an electric vehicle, then there is more possibility to extract more amount of energy from the battery. So end of the day, they are telling that the battery warm-up mode can extend the range of the battery pack. So this is definitely a very good factor, and I would strongly recommend the faculties, research scholars here to to extend the same thing for two-wheeler or three-wheeler or different applications. Different applications, so that we can apply for the different applications. And end of the day, this coolant temperature, the battery warm up can improve the overall performance, overall cost target. End of the day, it is going to improve the performance target, right? So 26% range extension possibility means it is a very considerable factor, right? So I think we should also try the same for two-wheeler, three-wheeler application, because as I told, India is especially working on this segment, and even we can use the same for a passenger bus kind of system where we are talking about efficiency improvement, right? So this kind of warm-up mode, that means two ways we can do the research. One is as a research scholar, what we can do is studying a battery pack. You can take a battery pack and study the temperature, the overall temperature it is actually creating, what is the amount of heat it is actually emitting when at the time of charging discharging condition, and see how much amount of possibility, try to run the battery in a cold temperature. You can take the example, help from the GARC and other cold chamber. There are many cold chambers present in India at different places. So you can take the battery pack to such cold chamber and study what is the warm-up temperature needed, temperature needed to bring the warm-up power it consumes for a battery pack to work in a normal condition, operating condition, and see what is the range possibility improvement, extension improvement possibilities are there. So all these are, very good areas to do further improvement or research. And definitely it will be like more, I think people know about offensive patent and defensive patent, right? So if some of these patent, basically some patents which will be immediately, it will be applicable for, they will be applying that for a real-time vehicle, right? So either you can work on a offensive patent generating research or a defensive patent generating research, which will be in future, useful for them to implement that in their projects, right? So you can either work on any of these such projects. So the coolant temperature, studying the coolant temperature versus the battery temperature, studying the electric water heater power, the ratio of the electric water heater power or the warm-up request, all these things are different ways it can function. So overall, if we want to summarize that, the compact, efficient front-end heat exchange system using an ambient air-cooled radiator for the battery, it has enabled the repeated driving of highway cruising and fast charging. So this the model developed by Honda E has enabled their vehicle to work on even continuously longer highway running, continuous running, even though the temperatures are very high there, or even a fast charging environment, right? And the developed battery warm-up system by Honda E for their vehicle using an electric coolant heater and 2 electric valves, it has actually enabled them to improve the considerable amount of drive range extension. So these are all the major achievements they have taken in this case, right? So I hope the case study has given you a better idea on how to manage this thing, right? And one more, so you can look at this particular factor, the cooling loop. All these are the components which are present in the EV components. Say this is the motor traction drive unit, where the inverter, controller, everything sitting here, and you can see the accessory power inverter module. This is the inverter module for the motor, and this is the accessory. This is the accessory power module, which is going to transfer, the DC-DC converter basically, and this is the charger module, onboard charger module, right? And all these are, you can see the coolant pipe, coolant circulation vent. You can see this inlet, outlet, inlet, outlet. So each and every component has their inlet, outlet. So all these are coming inside a common loop. So here you can see this approach. Here they have brought all the components into a single place, single location. So that is one more benefit, right? If we bring all the components inside, then the coolant pipe, the coolant linkages or the coolant pipes can be reduced a lot. They can be optimally reduced a lot. So that is one way to look at it. As we remember the inverter component, right? One of the main component which actually generates heat in the inverter is the power module. You can look at this example inverter module. So the control board, the gate driver board is there, and the controller board is there. So both are sitting in the same system, and you can see the DC link capacitors, the power inverter modules, the three-phase connection, current sensors, the phase current sensors, which is measuring the phase current of all the three phases. So all these things are coming up in a single inverter casing, right? So even in these cases also, we need to have a thermal management loop. And look at this picture. It definitely talks about the temperature flow, right? So in this case, it is very clearly visible that the power electronics, the power electronic component is the one which is actually cooled at the first phase, right? So it is the coolant is actually coming inside first into the power inverter module, the inverter component, and then it goes to the, look at the picture, it goes into the rotor, right? It goes into the rotor side, rotor component, and it comes out, and once again it comes to, which component is this? Any idea? Look at this zone, what is this component they are cooling down? Any idea?
Bearing.
Very good. Yes. So we saw that if you remember the E-axle diagram on the first day, the bearings were sitting here at this location. And we understand that they are very big bearings. They are not conventional bearings that we use in a normal petrol diesel vehicle engines and all, right? So the bearings, what they use in the electric drive unit, they are very big, and they are going to withstand a huge amount of load on them because of many, because of the rotor operating at very huge, high RPM, like more than 10,000, 15,000 RPM, right? So these bearings also get heated up. So a dedicated cooling loop for the bearing, and then the other side of the bearing, the drive side or the driven side, both the sides, we need to cool down the bearing. And then finally the stator, you can say the stator is also being cooled, right? After cooling down the stator completely, the coolant circulates finally to the another bearing, and finally the outlet. Right, so this circulation happens, every time the vehicle is operating on the drive unit. Basically, the bearing plate, stator component, rotor internal cooling, all these things lead to improvement. So you can see, without if there is no internal cooling, internal rotor internal cooling, look at the temperature distribution, right? Look at the temperature distribution for e-drive system. We can see that the temperatures are extremely high, on the extremely high side, when there is no internal rotor cooling happening, right? But look at this particular coolant system. Here we have the thermal management happening, cooling loop running inside the rotor. Basically, it is a hollow rotor design, and they are able to circulate the coolant inside the rotor, and basically it improves the performance of the motor. So compared to the this left one, you can see that the temperature distribution is very optimal, or you can say acceptable level compared to this particular model, right? So we need to work on the challenges is that we need to develop the water jacket on the stator part. Let me zoom this, so you can see the water jacket at this point of location. You can see the stator components, the rotor component, all these things, including the gear transmission component, everything undergoes the cooling loop. The cooling loop is there, and most of the cases it is oil cooling loop. They don't use the water glycol combination. Most cases they use the oil-based cooling circuit inside this kind of environment, right? And what is the benefit? What is the benefit of adding a thermal management loop inside a drive system? What is the benefit they have achieved? Can we relate that thermal management inside this system? For example, this particular model from Audi e-tron vehicle, they are able to they have improved the system further. How they have improved, let us look at it. The boost torque, the boost torque capability, peak torque capability, boost power capability, and peak power capability, and the continuous power capability. All these capability of the drive system has been improved further, improved a lot because of the presence of a thermal management system inside the electric drive unit. For example, you can very clearly see that the boost, that means the peak torque ability of the motor is around 247 Newton meter for up to how much time? 60 seconds it can provide this peak torque. And the boost torque capability of this motor, it's around 10 seconds it can provide this torque, and it is up to 300, more than 300 Newton meter torque possibilities are there, right? It's very high for such a smaller system, such a high level of torque, which is like equal to a torque developed by a truck. Such a huge torque they are developing for a better acceleration performance. And similarly, the power also, the peak power and boost power. For 60 seconds, we call it as peak power, and for 10-second operation, we call it as boost power. All these are possible only because of the temperature, the temperature control done in the drive system. And finally, the continuous power capability, it is close to 90 kilowatt in this in this case, and it is close to 40 kilowatt continuous power is possible. We call it as S1 cycle, right? In the motor drive cycle, we call it as S1 cycle, power cycle, operation cycle. So that is how this particular system has operated. So overall, when you look at a thermal management of electric vehicle drive unit, end of the day, it has to ensure that each and every component, the motor cooling, either it is a stator or rotor, each and every component is properly, that the overall temperature management is properly done in that. So that is very important, right? So if you remember yesterday we have seen that video. So if you remember that the cooling loop, once again, now after this explanation, just look at this particular cooling loop on the engine and gearbox side. You will understand that the cooling path that they have taken in this case. So this is the stator component with the three-phase terminal. So this is the rotor component. You can see the bearing. So this is the hollow rotor where the coolant can run inside and come out. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, three-phase lines. So still maintaining the air gap, that is very important. In addition, you can see already on the rotor end itself, on the rotor end plate itself, they have developed the fin, actually, a fan kind of system. So it is on the casting itself, they have developed it, right? On the rotor end plate casting itself, they have developed this kind of a fin kind of projection, so that when they are operating at a very high speed, more than 10,000 RPM and all, so because there will be a huge temperature rise on the system. So this is where the cooling loop also runs here, right? The bearing plate zone where the cooling loop is once again running there to reduce the temperature there. See, this is the overall view. So we can see here the jacket, the coolant jacket present on the stator end, right? And you can see the coolant which is also running near this particular end. You know, from the heat which is taken from this fan. You know, through using this fan, it gets transferred to this particular coolant zone, and you can see the coolant circulation path for the rotor also. So it has like it has its own rotor cooling zone where it extracts the heat from this area, and you can very clearly see the coolant temperature sensor placed on the rotor end, you know, on the end of the axle side. So this is the coolant temperature sensor mounted here, right? Many cases they apply the coolant temperature sensor at multiple zones as well. You know, it is not only one location. In some cases they can keep the temperature sensors at multiple locations like stator or the rotor component or different areas wherever requirements are there. So as we see that the coolant circulation is like this. So you can see the path. It comes into the inverter module. So first it cools down the inverter module and then goes to the rotor component, and then it comes back and then it rotates back to the bearing system. You can see that it goes to the bearing system and then to the stator component. It cooled down the stator component completely, and finally it goes to the another bearing at the other end, and then it goes to the outlet end. So it is not, you know, many times it is the inverter which is basically generating, you know, the losses depending upon the losses present there on the overall power losses of the switching devices, on all the system level losses, you know, from the DC-DC converter or the DC link capacitor. All these components definitely, you know, they definitely they have losses, and the temperature rises are definitely there in each and every component. So basically, whenever you see an integrated cooling loop, they connect the first they cool down the electrical electronic components only. Later only they go for the battery pack and other components. That's how the system works basically. Because if the battery pack is cooled down initially, then the temperature in the battery pack will be like in such a way that it will not properly help the cooling system to work for an inverter system. So that's all about the you know, the thermal management in a E-drive unit. I hope you know, in addition to the explanation, this video also has given you a better understanding on the thermal loop of a you know, of a E-drive system basically. So we have challenges in all this area, right? So using some of the simulation softwares, you know, there are some simulation softwares available in the market. One is ANSYS, which is especially dedicatedly for this kind of application, and one more is Abacus, and we have softwares from HyperMesh, you know, HyperWorks as well. All these softwares, you know, you can utilize these softwares for thermal analysis. You know, if you are a mechanical or mechanical related faculty, and in case if you are an electrical electronic related faculty, you know, definitely a research scholar, I would encourage to work on the modeling side, you know, thermal modeling of a two-wheeler system or a three-wheeler system or a passenger car or a passenger bus size that using in MATLAB simulating environment. We have different components for that using the SimPower, you know, SimPower and Sim related Simscape related components. We can definitely model the thermal management components using the valves, compressors, you know, evaporators, condenser, and all these components are available already there. Only thing is you need to rightly size these components for each of your project, and if one time if you are able to do a model, then obviously you can replicate the model for different applications. So is there anyone who is actually interested to work in the thermal management side already, or thinking to work on this kind of area? Anyone interested to work on that area? You can definitely let us know, so that you definitely, because myself, I'm very much eager to work with some faculty who is actually interested to work in this area, either in the modeling and simulation or in the real-time testing as well. So if any such faculties are there, feel free to reach me. So definitely I will be happy to be part of your research activity wherever my support is required. So that's all about the part, the thermal management topic today, in today's discussion. So if there are any questions, kindly please feel free to ask the questions.
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Sudesh.
sir, is there any integral coolant pump in that arrangement? Normally in engine we are having coolant pump.
Yes. We will have a coolant pump actually. Yes, a coolant pump will be there. Both the that means they have just mentioned it as coolant pump. It is basically, and that will be placed at different locations also.
Okay.
Either a near battery, one coolant pump will be there, and near DC-DC converter, because depending upon the pressure requirement.
Yes.
Because since if the overall thermal loop is very long, automatically it will lose its pressure, right? The flow velocity will be reduced. So because of that, depending upon the flow velocity requirement, there might be one or more coolant pump requirement. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.